Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Double One Radio Weekly Podcast. This is episode number 20. We've got a packed schedule for you today. I am your host, Ryan. I'm joined by the lovely Ben.
Lovely.
The wonderful Tess.
I know.
Wait a minute.
The gorgeous Wyatt.
You know it.
And the gregarious Brett.
That is the word for me.
What is gregarious mean?
I don't know, but it sounds like Gregory.
Yeah,
Gregarious.
that's
What?
pretty accurate, actually.
A person fond of company, sociable.
You're right.
Yeah.
Sounds
That's
about right.
It's a good word.
It is a good
I do.
word. And speaking
I
of
like
good
that.
words, we have a game to play.
We do.
That was it was a
Always.
reach. I know it was a reach, but we had to do it.
Wow.
No,
We start-
I'm
that was,
embarrassed for you.
we
so you know how you jump to conclusions? That was like
Yeah?
you got into a rocket ship and just blasted it out of space with that one because I don't know where the connection was.
That's the point. That's the point.
Anyway,
Okay, so our our game today is Guess the Guest. And in honor of Marvel's Avengers having an exclusive guest character on the PS4, being Spider-Man, which we all think is a bad practice, we're going to talk about some honored guests from Soul Calibur 2. The game that had a unique character for every platform. That was Nintendo, it was Xbox, and that was Sony. I don't know why I said Xbox instead of Microsoft, but each of those three had a unique character. So what I'm going to say, I'm going to ask you guys to tell me what the unique character was for each one. So we got Xbox, we got PlayStation, and we got, I think it was the whatever Nintendo console was out of the time, probably the GameCube, I think. Definitely the GameCube.
God almighty.
Each one had one unique character. It was console exclusive. Some of them have returned to the newest Soul Calibur. We'll start with Wyatt. Wyatt, can you tell me what Xbox's unique Soul Calibur character was?
You can't say Arbiter.
I mean, you can say Arbiter. Why? No one's banning you from saying Arbiter.
I am.
I'm doing it as well.
Well, there you go.
I have a 2 out of 5.
The council
All right,
has
we've got
declared.
Arbiter. Okay, Ben, you seemed
yeah.
ready. I'm taking Arbiter as your actual answer. I hope you know that.
Sure, I don't.
Splatoon 2.
Okay, so we've got our consoles mixed up here. We're talking
We also
about
have our generations
Xbox.
mixed up here.
Xbox is the console that has Halo, and
Banjo-Kazooie.
it had a bunch of
Halo?
Marvel games. It had Marvel games as well.
Oh,
So
Flash or something.
yeah, back in the day. So what's your guess?
I don't know. Halo Master Chief.
Halo Master Chief. All right, that's a good guess. I'm not disparaging
Halo
that guess.
Man.
I know it's not, but
The Halo Man.
yeah, Halo Man.
All right, Brett, you got something for me?
God. I'm not even sure. Like, did Microsoft even have games that were out at this time? I'm not
Yeah,
even
Forza.
like.
I mean, they
Oh,
did. This
that's
is a
You play
existing
as a
thing.
Forza car.
I would not put it
my,
past Soul Calibur.
My final answer will be a Lamborghini. You play
Say
as the
Arbiter, I
Lamborghini.
swear to God. Okay.
No.
All right, Tess, are you jumping on the Arbiter bandwagon?
I don't even know what that is.
Arbiter's a Halo
So
character.
easy.
I also don't know like anything about Xbox.
That's fine. Okay, we'll go over the Xbox. So the Xbox character was Spawn
From what?
from Marvel
favorite.
Comics.
Oh
From
yeah, I
Spawn.
know that one.
This is the left field one. Now,
Okay.
I'm not gonna ask you what the PS4 one is because I'll give it to you since I don't think anyone here has played Tekken. It's Heihachi from Tekken.
Oh okay.
That's who that character was. He's like the least important of all of these. Nintendo big rep in Soul Calibur. Who was it?
Lonk.
Link. Yeah.
We got Link. Anyone disagreeing with Link?
Star Fox.
Star Fox
Shit.
could have been.
That's actually. I feel like I've seen a Star Fox in a Soul Calibur
In
game.
a fighting game.
Yeah.
I mean, he is in a fighting game in Smash.
Right, yeah, it's-
Doesn't mean he can't be in Soul Calibur.
I'm imagining Toad as a Soul Calibur fighter.
What if we got Villager in Soul Calibur?
Ooh.
All right, Tess, I think you're the standout. What do we got?
Everyone said Link, so I'm gonna say Zelda.
Zelda? All right. Well, we all know game companies were very misogynist. In
Oh, you know what? That's true.
Yep, it was Link. It was Link. Also, that was I think the last like Zelda to have come out when Soul Calibur 2 came out was Ocarina of Time. I don't know why I completely blanked.
Okay.
Actually, it might have been Wind Waker. But again, Ocarina of Time, like Zelda hadn't been like a fighter character yet. Well, no, she was Sheik. You know what? No, I'm full of crap.
You know
Ignore
what? You were the
everything I just said.
all along.
Look, last news game was your peak. This one, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Look, I was
Sometimes I like to
banking.
forget
I
that
thought.
sexism is
I
a
figured
thing.
someone here would have played Soul Calibur and it would have been better.
I've played Soul Calibur 5
6 is where it's at. All right.
on PlayStation.
So the reason we were talking about this is our first news topic of the day, which is that Avengers is going to have an exclusive character on the PS4.
Spider-Man.
Yep.
Yay.
Good.
Moving on.
I don't really care.
Don't say good to that. I don't think this is a thing we say good to.
It was a very,
You know-
very sad, just soulless good.
Yeah.
That does not good.
Does anybody else get a fun exclusive character?
Not as of yet. And it seems like
Oh.
it's an exclusive deal that goes a little further because they have said that the PS4 will also get some like DLC stuff first.
Oh my god.
So it's probably not just Spider-Man. At least it will probably be Spider-Man character-wise. I'm betting that's it.
It's the Spider Women and the Spider Children too.
Yeah. Probably if we get Spider-Gwen,
Gwen.
that'll happen.
Spider-Pig
Spider-Pig.
will be there.
Yeah, we'll
Yes.
get 8
Spider-Ham.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The Spider-Verse will be in.
Dr.
Avengers.
Octavia,
Dr.
the
Robot.
woman from the animated
Right,
Spider-Verse film.
Yeah. All right. So that's what's
Gwen's
happening.
funny.
Boo.
I think pretty much universally our take on this is that it's bad.
It's
Yeah.
kind of dumb.
I
Look,
get.
even
even if you're someone who just owns a PS4, like it's still bad. Because I've seen people where it's like, oh, I own a PS4, so like who cares? It's like, yeah, it's still like that's such a selfish like viewpoint to have though. Like even if you just own a PS4 and you're getting the character, it's still bad for everyone. You know?
Well, here's the reason
Yeah.
I don't care is because I'm not going to play the game. Because
All right.
it
Well,
looks
we're going to
stupid
talk
and
about
boring.
that later on, Ben. That's a topic for after this discussion. All right.
Right.
So, yeah, the exclusivity deal is not just Spider-Man. It's a few other things. It's all timed aside from Spider-Man, from what we know. That could very easily change by the time this episode is out, because we record on not news days on weekends. So, if something happens Monday, by the time you're listening to this, it might be different. And that also brings us, we do have a few changes coming next week. We'll talk about it at the end, so stay tuned for that. But for right now, Spider-Man is exclusive. It's not good. And I think do want to cut off one argument at the head, which is why we had this Soul Calibur game. I think there's a very big difference between a fighting game, and especially a fighting game that came out 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago at this point, almost 20, I think, that had exclusive characters, and exclusive characters in a co-op, like PvE focused looter game, because there's a very different like style between those two. Like guest characters in fighting games have been like a tradition for a long time, and they're pretty simple relatively. You're not locking content off from people. But like, what if I want to play my missions, my dailies in Avengers as Spider-Man, right? I can't do that now if I play on PC or Xbox.
Think of it this way. Think of you're playing Destiny 2 and PS4 users exclusively get to use the Titan and no other platform gets to use the Titan.
Yeah, it's locking
It's
a class
like
out of
that.
a game.
Yeah.
It's a lot more
Like-
akin to that than just locking a guest character in a fighting game.
In original Destiny, like for a while, the PlayStation had some pretty good weapons for a whole year.
Dude, I remember that. I got Destiny 2 on PC, and Destiny 2 had some exclusive. They had an exclusive strike.
Yeah,
they had
dude,
exclusive
well, man,
exotics.
That's right.
Modern Warfare has an exclusive co-op mode on PS4.
And like
Yeah,
that stuff is
I remember.
ridiculous to me. That's so weird that you're locking
Yep.
content specific like game modes to a console. Especially in like this
It's true.
era of us pushing for cross-play and cross-platform stuff.
So in a time like we're in right now, is it really a good idea to have these very like scummy kind of exclusive?
Because like
business
no one's talking about
practices?
anything else in the entertainment industry, right?
Well,
'Cause
yeah, and
movies
also
are kind of
people,
closed down.
yeah, and also people are playing games more than ever, and to try and push, right now anyway, and it's like, and to try and push these more exclusive deals is just such bad timing. Like, if you're going to
Yeah.
do it at all, right now is a very bad time to do
And
it.
there's obviously a difference between exclusivity deals and making a game through funding of like Sony or Nintendo for their platform, and that's exclusively on that platform. Those are very different things, and that game would not have been made. And maybe it is this kind of situation where Avengers would not have been made without Sony. I doubt
don't
it.
know if
I
because they
heavily
already have
doubt
a
it.
publisher.
Yeah. They're being published by Square Enix.
Because it's not the same thing as like
Well-
Bayonetta 2, where Bayonetta 2 would not exist if Nintendo
Yeah.
hadn't funded the project.
Doesn't,
Here, they're already
um,
being funded by Square Enix. So like,
Squeening. Doesn't Sony own the rights to Spider-Man in video games?
Yes, they do.
So maybe the studio came to Sony and was like, "Yo, we want to put Spider-Man in our game," and they're like, "No, only on our console."
That's what I'm betting
Yeah.
happened. I'm betting it's a legal thing where they probably
Yeah.
have to do something akin to this to keep the rights. Like, it could be
Yeah.
the logic behind this isn't even particularly scummy.
They could be like, if this goes on somebody else's console, now we don't own the
Yeah.
rights in full or something dumb like that.
what if they had done?
Because there's already been there's been a ton of legal rights issues over Spider-Man recently. Like after Far From Home, there was a period of time where we were uncertain if another Spider-Man movie would be able to be made because the rights were lost for a time. So yeah, that is like a thing that happens. We don't know if that's the case. I think my answer would have been just don't make Spider-Man a part of this game, because like Spider-Man, he's not an Avenger usually, aside from the new movies. And like, we have a good Spider-Man game on PS4, so anyone playing Avengers will compare Spider-Man in that game to Spider-Man in his own game and be like, this is
Which
just worse.
Undoubtedly going to be better.
Undoubtedly worse.
Because it's a whole game about Spider-Man.
and
instead of a
again,
whole
we'll
game
get
about
to
10
that.
different people.
We'll get to why later.
Yeah, well, we'll get to why right now, because I think we're about done with that conversation, which means we
Oh.
can talk about it.
Oh,
So,
all right.
for people that don't know, the Avengers game has been having betas. They had the pre-order beta for PS4 last week.
Quote unquote.
They had a beta this past weekend, for open on PS4 and pre-order on PC and Microsoft Xbox consoles. Next week, there's the open beta for every platform. Hot takes. It's not even a hot take. The beta is not very good.
No, So Ryan and I streamed it a couple days ago, and
Yep.
we played for like what, 2 hours?
We played for
Hour and a
almost
half?
3.
Almost 3 hours.
We gave it a
And
good
we-
shake.
It's funny to watch that back, because we started off like, well, this isn't that bad, and then as time went on, we couldn't stand it anymore.
It's also like the
both of us-
performance becomes so bad.
both of us had headaches at the end of it. Legitimately, I had a headache and I had to go take
Yeah,
some.
I've never gotten a headache that way from a video game before. And
It's this
it's the
horrible
motion blur.
combination.
The frame rate
Yeah.
is so inconsistent.
The
It was
screen
dropping
shake.
from like 45 to 0 constantly.
The screen shake was unreal. Like, it's a combination of frame rate and motion blur and screen shake, and it was a mess to look at.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it
I think
was
if you listen to
disgusting.
what we were talking about, there are the bones of a good game in there somewhere,
Mhm.
but there is no way that it is a good game when it releases, I think.
We played it for almost 3 hours, and we could not get a game where we were
Yeah,
able
we
to
couldn't play the
together.
multiplayer, which is the biggest draw of the game at all.
It started off as them locking it off because they wanted you
Yeah.
to do some story stuff first, but then when we had the ability, it just was not working at all.
Yeah, and we tried a lot. Like,
Yeah.
if you can watch it, the latter like 30 minutes are us trying to figure out how to do multiplayer, and we get it working, and then it just crashes, and it's wild. It didn't work. There were so many bugs. I fell through the geometry. Like, and all of this is on the stream. You can watch. That VOD will also be up, so you can see our entire first time seeing any of this. It's not great.
Yeah, and the biggest concern as well is if you take it as just like, a simple kind of co-op beat 'em up game that you can play with some buddies, it wouldn't be that bad. But we're very concerned about the way that loot plays into this, because it feels very tacked on. It feels like it doesn't have a place in this game
Yeah,
whatsoever.
because your loot doesn't make any visual difference from what we could tell, aside from maybe changing the particles.
Really?
Which was shown in the war tables, because the costumes are monetized. And also, every character has a battle pass. We don't know if these battle passes will be like paid or free. In the beta, they were all free, but you could
Here's
buy
the
to
thing.
skip tiers.
Here's why everyone is saying there will be a paid battle pass, though, because if you look at the way the battle pass is set up,
It says free.
It says free. It says like all this stuff is free, but there's this large section of empty space at the bottom where there's nothing there, and it would be a perfect place for a paid battle pass. And they wouldn't be telling you that all this stuff is free if there wasn't a paid
version.
option.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm thinking. And we had this big moment of concern. We're like, what if they have individual character battle passes? What if they do that? What if we go to the next level of DLC scumminess and have per character battle passes?
Here's the thing. I said it. Let's just get out of the way.
It's okay.
I said it. I want to say this, though. I don't think a battle pass per each individual character is an inherently bad idea. And let me explain why. If they're selling them individually, that's bad. If they're not selling them as like one, that's bad. But in my opinion, an individual battle pass per character would have been a great thing in something like Battlefield 5, where having each class have their own specialized battle pass would have been much better than.
Dude, I'm sure people in like Rainbow Six would love that, as if their operators got like individual battle passes where you could unlock cool stuff by playing them.
Yeah, because if you have one unified battle pass for all your characters, what happens then is that everyone. What?
Sorry, no.
What happens is that everyone is then going to be playing the same characters. Like, oh, here's some battle pass stuff related to Hulk. Everyone's now going to be clamoring to play Hulk. Here's a battle pass thing specifically for Ms. Marvel. Everyone's going to be playing Ms. Marvel. It would be a mess. So an individual battle pass makes sense, but if they're charging us for individual battle passes, that's bad.
Valorant is the game I was thinking about. Valorant has that kind of sort of ish thing. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But
Valorant is particularly grindy, but it's also free to play.
Well, it's overwhelmingly grindy, but it is per character.
And it's free to play, like Ryan said. This is
a $60 game.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest takeaway I had, at least, is that this game is just broken. Like it does not work. The bugs I encountered were not game breaking, but there were a lot of them. They were very consistent. You could replicate them, and they were varied. Like there was a lot of different stuff going wrong.
And here's the thing: number 2. Go ahead.
Watched a playthrough of Jack Frags. I'm sure you guys know who that is.
Yeah.
On some level. And even without the bugs, because he wasn't getting that many, it just kind of looked super lame. Like it's
not
really boring.
Great. They also start you with Hulk, who is the worst character by far.
Okay. See, I only watched him play Hulk, and it's just like the Hulk taking 2 to 3 hits to kill somebody who is literally just a normal dude with a gun is ridiculous. Because that just totally makes him feel like trash.
And something that Ryan and I both noticed is that let's put bugs and performance aside for a second. Say that wasn't an issue. One issue that we noticed after playing it for a little while was that the combat is really slow and there's no impact behind your hits whatsoever. It's sluggish and slow, and it didn't feel like it was designed to be that way. It just wasn't fun. And the other problem I had too, and I think Ryan had the same issue, you're fighting like tons of people at the same time, and I couldn't tell what was going on. I couldn't tell where I was getting hits from. I couldn't predict enemy movement. And part of that was because of just the visual mess that was going on. But there was no flow to it. There was no point where I felt like I was aware of what was going on.
There's definitely a lot of like just unnecessary particle effects from what I saw.
Yeah, there definitely were. Okay, so that's the general beta opinions. I think there were a few characters like Iron Man. For the little bit I did get to play him was fun.
So was Captain America.
And so was Captain America. Captain America, for the 5 minutes we got to, less than that, like 2 minutes we got to play him, was by far the funnest character to play.
I kind of wish the whole game was just a Captain America game. His mechanics were so much fun.
That's been my concern about this game ever since it was released. I'm like, you want to make a video game about what 7, 8 different superheroes? Like, good luck. Good luck making every single one of those feel unique and fun and fulfilling, like they deserve to be in this game. Like you're just not going to do it.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Hulk doesn't, as a character, fit in the same framework as Captain America, right?
Like
They're characters
Hulk
that
could have
fight
a
different
kick-ass-
threat levels, generally.
They would require different controls and different mechanics
Yeah.
and different games, really, for you to feel like
Yeah,
you're playing
that's
as
what I'm
that
saying.
character.
Like Hulk could
Yeah.
kick ass in his own game,
Which he
Cap
did.
Would kick ass in his
Ultimate
own game.
Destruction was a great game.
Yeah.
Yep.
But for a Hulk game, you need to be leveling, city blocks.
Yeah, city blocks need to be going down, which is why if you want a good Hulk game, go play Hulk Ultimate Destruction. It's a lot of fun.
Right.
And especially as a looter shooter style game, they're going to be expecting us to replay some of these missions over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and I didn't
no.
want to play through them like once. They were just they were very not replayable at all. I would not want to run through them multiple times.
Yeah.
Oh.
These missions were very scripted. They were very cutscene heavy. The frame rates the entire time are, again, awful.
Mhm.
There was a scene where this emotional scene was happening, and Kamala Khan, who is like the main character of the story, Miss Marvel, on my screen just didn't have hair. It was just gone. And I was so confused for like a split second. You can look at my face. I was just like, what is happening? I thought it was a different character, and I was just like, what's going on?
I'm also really worried about how they want to tell their story, because within the first like 20 minutes of the game, we had in-game cutscenes. We had this weird like 2D non-animated cutscene thing, and then we also had a giant block of text to like explain a massive amount of
and the
plot
weird
that
thing to me is
wasn't
like
there.
you're making a comic book game. You already have a delivery method that's cheap for storytelling, that is stylistic and cool. It's called using moving comic book panels. Every game that does that looks great, but it doesn't do that.
It was very cheap looking too. Like the weird still cutscene that they had. Like I would understand it if this was like a more budget title from a smaller studio, but this is Crystal Dynamics being produced by Square Enix. This is a big AAA release, and they have these like really cheap, shitty looking like cutscenes, and it was shocking, honestly.
Yeah, I think some people will enjoy this because they like their Marvel heroes enough to want to play them regardless of the quality. And there is absolutely a chance this game is good like a year down the line. I think just right now, this is absolutely not something you should be pre-ordering. Or if you do, you should go in knowing absolutely everything about it, right? Like, that this will probably have bugs. Not probably, it will. There is no way they fix the bugs we were talking about within the couple weeks they have left.
And that's another thing I want to say too. This is not. I am so sick and tired of releases like this being called betas. They are not betas. This is a demo. There's no way that they can take this beta, quote unquote, and fix the myriad of issues that it has in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. There's no way. It's honestly insulting to call this a beta and then try and convince us that these problems will be fixed at launch. There's no way. I hate it so much.
Why? It's okay because it's just a build from February.
It's okay because it's a free-to-play game. Oh wait,
Whoops.
I think that's the running theme here, is that this game feels like it should have been free-to-play. if this is the monetization model they're going with.
How much is this game? You said 60?
Yep.
It's a full price game.
$60.
And there is already an in-game store that you can buy with real money. You can't use real money in the beta, but there is currency that is real money only, or from the battle passes, for like cosmetics. So it's already like pushing the edge of what I would consider okay.
So it has that really annoying Destiny or Assassin's Creed Odyssey style menu where it has like a cursor that you use, but you're using a control stick, and I can't stand it.
I hate it so much.
It's
at least
not
Destiny's
good.
is generally snappy. Like this was just slow. It was not good.
And to Destiny's credit, the way that they lay out, like if you're looking at the inventory screen, the way they lay everything out makes enough sense, and it's laid out to a point where it's not quite as obnoxious, but it was bad here. It was not good.
Yeah. All right. So I think moving on from the Avengers beta, again, pretty much negative. You can look at very, very differing takes from different people on YouTube right now, and I absolutely would recommend that. But a lot of the takeaways are that it's buggy, the frame rate specifically is a huge issue, and it just isn't working to the degree it should for a game that's about to release. And I highly doubt we'll get like a delay or anything, considering it's so close to release. But I hope they do.
It needs it, sounds like.
Yeah. They do. They're in a state that needs something like that. Like this game's gonna need some reworks. Okay. So moving on, we got a couple other major news stories. Again, Halo got delayed. We're gonna talk at length about that in a little bit. But we're gonna let that sit. Let us build our excitement for that conversation. And we're gonna hit a few of the smaller news stories first, just to get them out of the way. So, fans of indie games, Factorio 1.0 is here.
Oh, baby. I didn't even know that was still coming. I thought that game had been released a long time ago.
Exactly. I think a lot of people thought Factorio had been released a long time ago, which is saying something about its quality because it felt
they add
finished
anything?
like 3 years ago. Yeah, they've added a lot. It's like a different game now.
I know, but like I played probably 3 months ago. Have they added anything since, like with the 1.0
I don't know.
patch?
So the last
Did
time
they
I
add
played was
something?
probably a good 3 years. I did
Okay.
love it though, and like it's a huge reason why I love Satisfactory as well. They're just my kind of games. For those who don't know, Factorio is like you build a factory. You invade an alien planet and you proceed to capitalize on all of its natural resources. Fun.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
It's a lot of fun.
It's really fun, actually. It's a very good game. My friend Kyle, and my friend Zach have spent just ungodly amounts of hours playing that game because it's one of those great games where it gives you enough to do where you're distracted and like focused, but you can just sit there and play and talk with your buds and just have a good night. Like you can just sit, have
Yeah.
a beverage, have a good time. It's really fun.
You know, it's a good podcast game. You're listening now
is.
to the
It's
podcast
excellent
and you're
fun.
playing Factorio. Props to you. How you should do it.
And there are these little oh my god, never mind. I'm not going to get into it.
Yeah, there's a lot,
it gets
a
really
lot of stuff
exciting.
going on with Factorio. It's a lot of fun.
It's fun.
It's released now, so if you were waiting for it to
Yeah.
be out of early access, you can
It looks
go for it.
It looks like they added like a new robot and like some.
Yeah, they added
other
a new
kind of thing.
vehicle that you can
Yeah.
robotize with
Yeah.
control chips.
Right.
And they
It
have said
doesn't
they're
look
going to
like-
continue supporting the game in some fashions, doing any bug fixes that are necessary, and they might do DLC in the future. But there were no, like, they didn't confirm anything yet, but they confirmed they would continue working on it in some capacity. Okay, so another indie darling exiting early access, Risk of Rain 2,
God bless.
is 1.0
yeah.
now.
I did actually just play that the other day, and let me tell you, the new end of the game is a dummy hard. It's so
Yeah.
hard, I can't beat it.
It's a lot of
so
fun, though.
fun.
It's
I've had a
super
lot of
fun.
fun
Now,
with
Risk
it.
Rain 2 is, I mean, again, that's another one of those indie games that I feel like has been finished for
Yeah.
Yeah.
a long time. They've just been adding more
And like
content.
I think Ben and I both jumped on the Risk of Rain 2 train when it launched in early access, and it felt pretty complete then.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. When it first
Relatively?
launched, it definitely you could tell it had some
But for a
Ways to go.
$15 indie game,
yeah.
then
for a $15 indie game, it was
it felt good, and especially because when it
feature
launched,
complete.
they had the 2-for-1 deal. So you would buy one and you get one to give to your
Yeah.
friends.
It was feature complete when it launched.
I bought the
content.
4-pack, I think.
Yeah.
You might have bought the
when I-
4-pack of Risk of Rain 1. I don't think 2 has a 4-pack.
Or no, it was the
Yeah.
for the get a
my only
friend
problem
one.
with that game, ever since I started playing, is the multiplayer just doesn't scale well.
Yeah,
It's
it
too
definitely
hard.
doesn't.
It's way too hard in multiplayer. Like I can
Yeah.
do pretty well on the hardest difficulty solo, but then when I play multiplayer, we struggle on like the medium difficulty. But it's still really fun.
Risk of Rain 2 is great. I would say expect to see a few streams of it soon if you're following the channel, because it's a lot of fun and it's a great stream game to just relax and hang out with.
And I want to beat the game and get the new character. so-
Exactly. Need to get the
really-
captain. All right,
He looks
so
sick. He's got a revolver. I'm ready. I'm excited.
we'll hold off on the rest of the Risk of Rain conversation until after if we play it and do like a nice thing on
Yeah.
it, we'll talk more about it. But we got some other stuff. So there's been a lot of articles in the last week about Sam Fisher, who you may know as the Splinter Cell protagonist. Splinter Cell
Right.
was, I say was, but technically still is Ubisoft's like stealth franchise. Except now people are getting mad. There's more and more articles piling up of people mad because Sam Fisher has been revealed to be in Rainbow Six Siege. So people are angry that Sam Fisher is now appearing in every single game but his own. We haven't had a new Splinter Cell in a very long time. So that's just some pent-up
Maybe-
frustration coming out of people.
Maybe they thought they could build some hype for a new Splinter Cell by putting him in Rainbow.
Yeah, but people thought that when they put him in all their other stuff, right?
Oh,
That's the thing.
Well-
They've been thinking that
well-
for years.
See, here's what they could. I stopped myself. What they could be doing is it's like, oh, we're gonna put him in, Breakpoint, but then Breakpoint, was Breakpoint, and then they're like, okay, we didn't get hype correctly. Let's put it in a game people actually like and see what happens.
I mean, but he was in stuff before Breakpoint too. Like he's had a lot of weird side things happening. Again, none of us. I don't think any of us here are that invested in Splinter Cell.
No.
I played some of Blacklist, which apparently people told me wasn't a good one, but
I liked Blacklist.
I mean, I would be down to get into it now. I feel like Splinter Cell was big when I was like 10. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
You can definitely, yeah. That's me.
Okay. Is that good on Splinter Cell? Anyone have Splinter Cell words they want to say?
You can definitely tell that it's very much, it's a stealth game that feels like Ubisoft style of like open world stealth gameplay.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell that they've definitely taken a lot of the design cues from the Splinter Cell games and moved it into their open world stuff.
And I would like to see more at some points. Like I think Ghost Recon is a series that's really taken a lot of stuff from it, but seeing like some more advanced stealth mechanics and something like Assassin's Creed would be a lot of fun. But that's a separate conversation again. So we have Fall Guys recently launched. It sold 2 million copies on Steam in a week, despite being free for PS Plus for the month.
I just got that for free on PS Plus. It reminded me. It was like, hey, you should get this. And I was like, oh my god, okay.
Your test, let me know whenever, and I'll play it with you. It's so much fun.
Can I do it on like PlayStation and you play it on PC?
I have it on PlayStation too. Yeah.
I feel like
I bought it on PC and I will get it on PlayStation.
I feel like I'm the only person, the only stick in the mud that isn't a huge fan of it, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm not even a huge fan. It's just super fun.
Wyatt and I played the PS4 version, and we did have some issues of like the motion blur was pretty aggressive, the bloom was very aggressive, and like I got the game on both PC and PS4 because it's free on PS4, and I had it pre-ordered on PC like months ago.
It wasn't super stable either. We were having some connection issues.
But that was launch day for free. So
even and that's the thing, is that I wasn't complaining about that too much because it was, I got it for free. My thing is that it takes control away from you too often for me, and that's a very like personal thing. Not everyone's going to be annoyed by that, and I get that. But for me, it's there were too many times where it's like I would try and make a jump or I would do a certain maneuver or something, and my guy would just completely ragdoll, and it just was frustrating. Like there's a point where ragdolls can be funny and fun, but I was just frustrated. It literally just felt like someone would come in and just take the controller out of my hands for a little while and then give it back. It was just super annoying for me.
Yeah, and for example, that didn't bother me. So there are two sides to that coin. But it is definitely a valid complaint, because if you are the kind of person that will get mad that the game eliminates you because your team did bad, or eliminates you because you accidentally fell off of something, that's the point of Fall Guys.
I'd also argue that not all of the tracks are very well designed. There are some that
most people would agree with that. I think there's a few specifics that aren't great.
The hidden door one, I don't like that one. I cannot stand that one. But hey, that's a personal thing.
Yeah, Fall Guys is doing great.
I don't think Fall Guys was ever supposed to be like the hyper competitive battle royale. It's kind of
I don't even think
Mario Kart arcade game.
I don't even think what I'm saying though is like a super competitive thing. I think that's just like a fundamental. I think But
it's a gameplay design thing, but some people will like that and some people won't. So I think it's saying it is just a complaint isn't necessarily valid, but saying it is a personal complaint and that there will definitely be people who don't like that is good to acknowledge.
I knew it was going to sell well because it has an art style that I think a lot of people enjoy, especially has like a character design that people enjoy. And a lot of people like this style of just completely just kind of, it's kind of competitive, but it's mostly just about messing around and like seeing how many crazy, weird, wacky stuff you can get to happen in one match. I think it was always going to be a game that would sell well. But
yeah, and the matches are always a good length. They're like 10 to 15 minutes at the most.
Yeah.
Which is a good change of pace from like 45-minute battle royales.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our Fall Guys talk. It's fun. If you have PS Plus, try it because it's free for the rest of the month. Which is, we still got half the month to go. So you got a while. Okay. So we're getting into our larger news stories. We got some delays. Actually, okay, so there is one negative story to get out of the way, which is Control's Ultimate Edition.
Oh, yeah.
Control's getting an Ultimate Edition. There is no difference between the Ultimate Edition and like all the DLC with the base game, but the only way you get the free next gen upgrade is if you buy the Ultimate Edition.
That's stupid.
The problem with this is the DLC released before they announced the Ultimate Edition.
So people now are stuck with they paid for the DLC, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, they're like, oh, whoops.
Yeah.
Oop.
And I think it's important too, because I know Remedy is getting a lot of flack for this right now. I find it very hard to believe that this was a choice that Remedy made.
Even if it's a choice Remedy made, it was made by like an exec at the top. It was not made by the rest of the company.
Yeah.
This was definitely a financial decision, not a generic decision.
So if you're someone, if you're someone that feels like you need to tweet it at whoever to vent your rage, just make sure you're tweeting it at the right person. I'd say don't do it at all. But if you have to, make sure you're tweeting at the right person.
Don't tweet at like Remedy's programmers, artists, and designers and be like, why are you doing this? Because they're probably just as upset about you as you about it and and can't legally speak about it. So it's not going to accomplish anything.
If it was Remedy, I'll sure as hell tell you it wasn't the programmer.
Yeah, it definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so that's that. We don't need to talk at length about that. Total War Troy was free for 1 day on the Epic Game Store. 7.5 million people claimed it in that time span.
God.
Yep.
And
you can't argue with free stuff. You cannot argue with free.
Haven't played it yet. Claimed it. I like Total War.
It's just okay. I mean, it's a Saga game, so it's like a much smaller scale, which is weird
because it's $50 normally.
Is it? Well,
it's $50.
So was Thrones of Britannia, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an online component, or is it purely single player?
There's multiplayer in Total War, but it's just battles, and you can do co-op campaigns too. Actually, Total War is really fun.
Ryan, if there's a co-op campaign, we should stream that.
I still believe. I don't know about that. You should try it off stream first because the co-op campaigns
they're long.
They're long, and you literally like 50% of your gameplay on the campaign screen is just sitting there because the other player is taking their turn.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of boring, in my opinion. I prefer to literally sit in Discord with my friends and play our own single player campaigns and be like, oh man, I just did this. Like, that's more fun for me.
Yeah, like Ben and I have done that before, and it is a lot of fun. So, great game to pick up for single player. Probably not so great for co-op.
Multiplayer battles are super fun. Like, don't get me wrong, that's super fun, but it's the co-op campaign that's kind of lacking, and it always has been in Total War. So,
yeah, it's not the focus of the game, but it's fun that they have them.
Yeah,
we get it. All right, so our last, like, I say little news story, it's still pretty big news story, is Cyberpunk had another Night City Wire. Which showed off some cool stuff. We got to see a lot more about the weapons. They look fun. We saw the 3 life path choices, so you can be either a nomad, a corpo, or a street dude. I forget what the street dude's slogan is, but there is like a fancy name for them.
Isn't
what they
like
showed
Street
looked
Rat
really
or
cool.
Something?
Yeah, I think it was like Street Rat. It looked fun.
Oh man, I want it. I want it real bad.
It's funny you mentioned that because literally during the last conversation we were having, I found that trailer on YouTube. And then I looked up the song because it's really good and I like it a lot.
The Cyberpunk trailers lately have been really good, so I would definitely watch that if you want to. It's not a super long thing. The Night City Wire was like 30 minutes total, so it's not long. They talked about music. They talked about the like how to set up the start of the narrative, and you do actually get to start in like different parts of the map depending on your background choice, which is really cool. So if you choose Nomad, you start out in the Badlands. If you choose Street Rat, you start in the streets. And if you choose Corpo, you start in a corporate office. So
all I'm saying is I want this thermal katana so badly.
Yeah.
It's not even funny.
It looks great. The weapons look really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of the weapon designs were really, really cool.
They look meaty too, man. Like the animations when they shoot and the sound just looks like it. Like I can tell it feels good.
There's impact.
I'm not even playing the game. There's a lot of impact. Great.
The one thing I saw that like worried me just from like the weapons being shown is that like they do look and sound like really chunky and awesome, and it might have just been like because like when you play for a trailer for E3, you play a different way than normal people would play the video game, just like out in the world. It looked really like slow, like shooting things and killing them was very slow. But then like slashing stuff with swords is way faster. I don't know if they were just like showing it off or if all the guns are literally that slow.
It looks like what they're doing is they're pushing the stick really slowly, getting that cinematic camera.
Yeah, they're doing cinematic lineups.
Right. It's the trailer thing.
And it's also, the game is first and foremost an RPG. I think it's important to keep in mind CD Projekt is pushing first-person perspective. They are not saying first-person shooter, and that's for a reason. It's because do not go into Cyberpunk expecting it to feel like Doom. It won't. Yeah. You will just be disappointed.
As long as it has passable first-person
expect
combat,
something more akin to Fallout 4 for combat.
That's all it needs. Like, as long as it's passable, that's all they really need.
It looks better than Fallout 4.
It looks better, but like that's the theme. It'll be still be stat-based.
Yeah.
Your stats will probably matter more than your like skill with a gun.
It looks like there's a couple of guns in the trailer that like curve the bullets for you.
Yeah, there are tech guns.
If you can like couple that with some of the movement abilities that seem like they're coming into the game, like
that's what I was really excited about was that it seemed fun. Yeah, it kind of starts off as like it seems like it kind of starts off as a standard like first person game, and then you unlock advanced movement. You like unlock advanced movement mechanics as you go, which is so cool.
And again, we don't know how crazy the advanced movement will be, considering we already know that wall running was cut because it didn't fit with the design. It wasn't something they could really design for in every area.
I mean, like even a double jump and a dash.
Yeah, like that's what I'm hoping for, is like basically Shadow Warrior style movement, where you have like the quick dash or something. I wouldn't say Doom Eternal, because Doom Eternal gets really, really creative sometimes.
Oh yeah, but I mean it has a similar.
It's got that platforming component.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it has a similar move set in some ways.
I mean, I think the closest comparison is again Deus Ex. Like Deus Ex is definitely in a similar space to this game. It's a little less of an RPG, but still that kind of theme.
Fallout 4 is not a bad comparison. It really is.
Yeah, Fallout 4
series
is a lot of fun if you're just going in from like the older games and want to see better gunplay. That's what it has.
I liked Fallout 4.
Yeah. Fallout's really good. I mean, it's old now, as with every Bethesda game that's come out, because they haven't made a goddamn new one. But
well,
all right. So now that we've talked about the fun stuff, we got some sad stuff to talk about. First off, we're gonna hit some delays. Some games have been delayed. What was that, Tess?
I said, "Oh, that's fun."
Oh yeah. So the first of our two delays, Vampire: The Masquerade Bloodlines 2, has been delayed to 2021.
Okay, that wasn't close enough for me to feel bad pain.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people expected this to happen.
That's okay.
Because I would rather Bloodlines 2 be good than it be soon. So hopefully when it comes out, it's good.
The thing is with that game is it's not like I've been like, man, I cannot wait for Vampire: The Masquerade Bloodlines. No, it's like that game looks really cool and I'll love it when it comes out. It's not like.
And even if you played the first game and loved it, you had already been waiting like 15 years.
Exactly.
So you probably did not expect another game. We'll get it at some point.
Yeah. So hopefully the fact that we're getting it to begin with is good enough. Like.
And the narrative stuff they've shown has me interested. The gameplay looked not necessarily subpar, just unpolished last time they showed it.
Well, I mean, it was also...
Yeah.
How long ago?
It was a while. It's been a few months. Yeah. We did see like a new trailer fairly recently at one of the summer events, which was pretty good. But it had some lighting issues. The textures weren't amazing all over the place. So there's clearly some like visual polish things and some, I would presume, gameplay things, since we haven't really seen a lot of gameplay going on. That probably triggered this. And speaking of visual polish and gameplay and calling for delays, Halo Infinite and the curse of this podcast not being able to get away from Halo for more than a week. We need to talk about Halo Infinite getting delayed, because I think this is the first of our two giant news stories of the day.
Cracking my knuckles, getting ready. Gotta get all limber up for the weekly Halo discussion.
And I think it's important to set a baseline here. We do want to set a baseline of, we've already talked a lot about the gameplay of Halo Infinite and what we thought, so we are not going to reiterate everything we already said. Go watch the last episode or the episode before that if you want our takes on that. We've talked about it twice at this point. Yeah, our thoughts are there.
Thoughts out of the way immediately. I still don't care.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
I still don't play Halo games.
Good take.
Never
Good take.
played a Halo.
Exactly.
I've watched people play it. Like when I was really young, I had friends that played like on their Xbox, and I watched them. But that's about it.
I mean, I'll say the same thing that I say about every game delay. Really, these days is like a late game is better than a bad game. So
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I think the interesting angle to look at this from is instead of looking at it as if it's a game getting delayed, look at it as the Series X not having a launch title. I think that's the more interesting take for this, because I think all of us will agree that a game should be delayed rather than be bad.
Yeah.
This is not a very diverse podcast in that perspective. Of most of us have worked on games or are adjacent to people who do, or have
just
played
like
them.
To play good video games.
Yeah, or would prefer to just play a good game. So I think the general and even the public opinion seems to agree with that. Of the delay is fine. The concern is now, will the Series X have enough going for it to do well when it launches?
Right.
Because there are definitely Halo is a console seller, right? If there's a new console with a Halo game, if I wasn't like a huge Spider-Man Sony fanboy, I would definitely pick it up and didn't have a PC that could play it. But thinking back to like the Xbox 360, that was an instant pickup because of all the cool stuff it had.
Yeah.
Whereas now the Series X is not looking to be like that.
That's tough. I think Xbox has already kind of submitted to losing this, like, quote unquote, losing this console generation as console sales go. I don't think they expect to beat Sony in console sales. I don't understand how they could. Because it's pretty clear they're moving away from hardware and into Game Pass and software.
Yeah. We should say Microsoft is poised very readily for the software market, right? Because Game Pass is incredible. There is nothing that can compete with it right now. And they're doing great there.
Yeah,
and I'm super happy about it because I have a PC.
And the other thing too, I feel like I've said this before, but I think Microsoft is in a very promising position for this coming generation, which is why I don't want to say that they've like failed already or like they're going to. I don't want to say that.
They just have a different objective to Sony.
But at the same time, I think that they're in a really good spot. They have a lot of talented people working for their platform now, and they didn't at the beginning of the Xbox One era.
Yeah,
and they definitely like. I feel like what really killed the Xbox One, like apart from exclusives, was just the way that it was announced to people. Like that terrible reveal back in 2013, where they didn't really show off any games. They showed off more of like the TV parts of it. I feel like they've learned a lot from that, and I think a lot of that has to do with Phil Spencer. And I think he's really been trying to turn Xbox as like as a thing.
And the whole like Xbox Studios initiatives are really cool. I think a good way to put some of this is that Xbox is poised very readily to have some really awesome stuff in 2 years.
Yeah,
I think they're not ready to show off. I think they have a really bright future ahead of them. I just don't think they're ready to show that off yet.
Yeah.
I think is the best way to.
Because like even I kind of wish we hadn't seen Avowed, because Avowed looked great, but Obsidian is working on 2 other titles. We have no clue when Avowed is coming, and I kind of wish we would just have waited to see it when it actually is coming out, because as of right now, it's just not that convincing. It's like I'm excited for it, but I don't know what I have to see there, and I think that's what people talk about when they're like, the Sony presentation was a better sell for their console than the Xbox presentation, because the Xbox presentation did not have much gameplay. We didn't see a lot of launch titles. We saw a lot of like end of Xbox One era titles, and then start or like midway through the Series X, we'll get like Stalker 2, we'll get Avowed, we'll get all this cool stuff then, but not right now. Whereas with Sony, we saw stuff like Miles Morales. They're like, this will be there at or immediately after the launch.
I think the difference between the two is that Sony, it feels like, is in a much better place to release their new console now, whereas Xbox isn't. And I think if like they're obviously not going to do this, they have to release the Xbox around the same time, if not before, if they can manage that, right? But I think if they had waited and Series X comes out in, another year or two where they have a lot more stuff to show off, they would really impress people with the amount of stuff that they have ready for that launch. But they can't. They have to launch it around the same time as the PlayStation, or they're going to lose sales. That's the reality of the situation.
They're going to lose a ridiculous amount of sales.
Yeah, if they weren't tied down to having to release the Series X by the end of this year, I do feel like, because there's a lot of smart people working there, and I feel like they would be smart enough to understand that now is not a good time to release the Series X.
That's also why we haven't gotten price reveals yet, is because everyone's waiting. And again, we also need to realize we're about to go into this giant global recession.
Yeah.
So console sales are a super hard thing to predict right now because a lot of people don't know what financial state they'll be in a few months. Because depending on how long this pandemic goes, like all of us are in America where it's still really bad. Some places are doing better, some places are doing worse. Wherever you are will make a huge difference as to how much access you'll have. And like if you worked at an in-person job that can't function during pandemic times, you're out of a job and probably won't want to pick up a console at launch because it's a risk financially. Whereas if you're in the entertainment industry or somewhere that is less impacted, or at least the games industry and the software industry, I don't want to say the entertainment industry at large because like movies are having a huge problem right now. But if you're in the software industry, you'll probably be fine. Like your job is likely not at risk. But everywhere else, it definitely is.
Yeah, I think no, it's. I mean, I've already said it, but I think Xbox is in a good spot just not to release things right now. I think they need more time.
They're playing the long game.
Yeah. And also, like, Xbox doesn't need to win a console war anymore. Like, the console war, I don't think is that concerning of a thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to pick up whatever Xbox does, even if it's just through Game Pass, because I have a PC, and I want to play these games. Whereas, like, on any Xbox One exclusives, like Halo 5, I just can't play. I don't have an Xbox One. I have no way to play the game, and I would, but I just don't have a way, and I'm not going to buy a console just for that game. And even then, like, I just don't have the space for it, too. Like, I have space for, like, my Switch and my PS4, but anything else is really pushing it.
Yeah, and I think it's very telling that Microsoft knows that they lost, and they're trying a very different strategy.
Yeah, they're making smart decisions.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more and more difficult to really have a console war because it's getting to the point where, like, oh, for the longest time, PlayStation and Xbox, you could compare the two, whereas Nintendo was always doing their own thing. Now I feel like because Xbox lost this hard in terms of just pure sales numbers, I think that they're really trying to do something different than PlayStation, and so it's becoming a lot harder to really compare the two head to head because they have such different focuses.
Yeah.
Which there'll always be a console war, no matter how infantile and stupid it may be. There'll always be a console war, but I think
I am curious how far into 2021 do we think Halo Infinite is delayed?
Man, I hope they have a lot.
I hope
into the summer.
The year.
Summer is a good time to release a Halo game.
Yeah.
For all the students who don't have jobs.
And if it is the summer, it's a good time to launch it. It gives them almost a whole year. Like
it gives them at least like 8 months.
A year.
I have a question to kind of go along with that. Will any amount of time be enough to quote unquote save Halo Infinite? Because if they've had it's been like there's no real specifics about the development, but like there's been talk about how many times it's already been delayed. They had to pretty much remake the game from the ground up after the reception of Halo 5. And then they've had so many chances, and like now they've shown it, and they're getting another delay. And like normally, like for something like Cyberpunk, it's like, oh, that's great. I can trust in this company that they will use this time that they've allotted to make a better product that I will buy. But for 343, it's like, okay, well, I've given you've given me 20 more minutes to do the math test that I studied the wrong chapter for. That's really not going to help me.
I think you actually kind of answered your own question midway through that of we don't really know yet because we don't have enough of 343's track record in this situation to know actually what's happening. Because like Reach, I think a lot of people really enjoyed Reach as a Halo game. It's one of my favorites, and for me, I think a lot of people were a little bit disappointed in some elements of it, but I still had tons of fun with Halo 4. 5 I just haven't played. So I don't think it's that 343 has a bad track record, it's just they don't have an outstanding one. Like The Witcher 3 earned CD Projekt.
I'm so sorry.
Bless you.
You're all good.
The Witcher 3 earned CD Projekt Red so much good faith that I think they could delay Cyberpunk indefinitely and not have an issue because people will be like, I trust them.
Yeah.
And they've always had that thing where they're like, well, the game will be out when it's done.
Yeah, and they're also like their own publishers, right? CD Projekt is not beholden to a console launch or Microsoft Studios. And what were you gonna say, Wyatt?
And the thing, the way I see it as well is that yes, there's a lot of people that don't trust 343 because of Halo 4 and especially Halo 5, and I understand that. But for me specifically, I do have a lot of faith in them because of, yes, they launched Halo 5 in not a great state. Yes, they launched MCC in not a great state. But the amount of effort that they put into adding content and fixing problems for both of those launches, for me, speaks. They're really listening to us. They're trying to change what they were trying to do, and they're trying to focus it more on what players wanted. Because I know, like, post Halo 5, they had a ton of changes to both like how the UI worked. They added a ton of multiplayer stuff, like classic weapons and things like that. MCC, they spent so much time trying to fix it, and I think it's in a fairly good place now. They've been porting all the games to PC, which must have been an absolute nightmare. And I really feel like they've been putting in the effort, even if they haven't released a game that everyone's been happy with. Even with Halo 4, they did a lot of updates to Halo 4's multiplayer to change things that people weren't really happy with. And so for me, they've earned my trust through through the fact that they're definitely listening to us and they're willing to put in the effort to fix something that they've.
And actually, if you think about it, just the fact that this new Halo game seems to be going back to the quote unquote Halo roots is probably a good indicator that they want to do right by the community. So I'm sure that's
yeah. I think the delay is, again, an indication of what Ben is saying, that they're aiming to do right by the community in some degree. Whether or not they actually will, or if that is just like, as Brett has been saying, is just like something they're not going to be able to deliver on, remains to be seen. It could go either way. It's risky right now to make predictions because we don't even know how long the game is delayed. We don't have a new release date. So, it's difficult to say. I think we can all be like, we would love for a Halo game to come out and be great.
And be just a good Halo game again.
Yeah. Like, I would love to see basically Reach 2.0, if that's what they're doing. But we don't know a lot about it yet.
If I can say one last thing, it's just to Wyatt's thing that you said before. It did take them like 4 or 5 years to fix the Master Chief Collection. Like they just left it in a terrible state for multiple years and didn't even say anything about it for a while. And then it's fixed now and it's great, but it took them probably 6 years total to get to the point where they are now.
So as a Battlefield fan, I'm used to that.
Yeah.
See, and that's my point. That's my point right there, Ben. Is that there are so many companies that will just cut their losses and move on. And there's definitely an argument to be made where they shouldn't have made those mistakes in the first place. I understand that. I understand that.
At least they came back and
they deserve so much credit, I think, for coming back to it at all. They didn't have to, but they did. And
if a company does it once, they deserve a lot of credit. If a company does it every single major release, then you got to start being like, come on, guys, get your shit together.
Then you have a planning problem.
You could also make the argument that that's part of modern game development.
Well, I'm not saying it's a good thing. We're hitting larger game development topics
but what
now.
I'm saying is, but what I'm saying is, a game will come out and it'll change a lot over its lifespan. Over its lifespan. For sure. And that's definitely part of modern game development. And I'm really happy that 343 is one of those industries, or is one of those companies. Is one of those companies that is really willing to put in the effort. Because again, I feel like there's so many people who don't understand just how difficult it was to port MCC to PC. Like, it's not as simple as you may think, especially with games that are specifically designed for a specific console in mind. It's a nightmare. And the fact that they put in so much effort to do that and it turned out as well as it did is worthy of praise in my book, personally.
Yeah, it's praiseworthy until it becomes a crutch or a pattern or whatever.
Yeah,
And,
like I would use Destiny as the example right now of something that's like very much pushing this duration of fix it after it's launched.
Yeah.
Like it's just becoming a huge issue with Destiny 2 right now.
That's a larger conversation.
Yeah, that it is a
Yeah, it
larger
definitely
conversation that I think
we
we'll
can
have
talk about,
after
we can talk about
the new
Battlefield and DICE
expansion
and
comes
EA and how much
No
of that
Man's
has to do with
Sky, yeah.
the publisher and how much of that has to do with the actual dev company,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
I mean, No Man's Sky was a good thing. It's like if Hello Games does a No Man's Sky again, like No Man's Sky has earned them a lot of goodwill after the fact because of how good the game is now. Like it's a legitimately great space sandbox now. But
Yeah.
if their next game, I think it's Little Campfire Story or something like that, launches in that state and they have to spend a year updating it again, they will now be the company with the reputation of that. It won't be goodwill anymore. It will be
because right now it's
they
like
spend years
the big
fixing it.
The big bad Sony pushed them, well, not really, but like it's an indie company made a mistake and they were beholden to Sony and they really had to.
They overpromised.
They promised more than they had and they got ambitious. They enjoyed their game. They were excited about making their own video game.
Yeah. They were just a little too free with what they were saying and like saying all these goals that just weren't achievable, and they probably didn't know they weren't achievable. And I think as like especially from the Wyatt and I's stance of designing for games, that's something that's super easy to do. Is just like get overexcited about something and say that it'll be this way, and then realize that's not technically possible,
or at least not soon enough.
Yeah, not soon.
And if I can say one last thing about 343 Industries and then I'm done. But I feel like with 343 Industries, I don't feel like they're a bad studio at all. I think their problem is that they've always with Halo 4 and Halo 5, for me, and not everyone feels this way, but for me personally, 4 had a very good campaign with a very good story, probably one of the best in any Halo game, in my personal opinion. But its multiplayer was lacking for a lot of people, and for me, the opposite is true with Halo 5, where I think they have one of the best multiplayers in a Halo game, and their story is terrible, and their campaign wasn't very good. And so when you look at those, it's like this studio is, I think, capable of making a very well-rounded Halo game. And if you look at the behind-the-scenes issues with both games, there were things that went wrong in development for both cases, and it's interesting if you have the time to read it, but. I think they have the capacity to make a really well-rounded Halo game, and they've just made 2 Halo games that feels very lopsided in opposite directions. And so I feel like with Halo Infinite, they have a chance to really make that well-rounded Halo game that I think they can make. I just hope that, I just hope that they can do it, because I feel like they can, given their track record.
Yeah. Okay. So any other last words on Halo?
Halo.
Yes, but I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, Wyatt, you had your last word. We'll talk more about Halo in the future, and for sure.
Video game.
But we were pushing the definition of talking about the Halo Infinite delay. So we're gonna talk about our next giant topic then, which is Fortnite and Epic are getting suey.
Fortnite's flossing on Apple, baby. Get him out of here.
All right. So before we get into this, I'm going to give us some basic background for people that aren't following a ton of like very specific gaming news. Essentially, Epic released a new thing for Fortnite where they just lowered the cost of V-Bucks, which is great if you're a Fortnite fan. Like if you can now buy stuff cheaper. I don't think any of us here really are, but
No.
if you are, stuff is cheaper now.
Yay!
Yay for you.
However,
on Apple and Google platforms, specifically mobile devices, they, instead of being able to just cut the price in the app stores, like for the in-app purchases, they added a new option that was like Epic Direct, which essentially would take you to their direct payment and bypass the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. And then you would be able to get the discounted rate on your mobile phones. The issue then became that Apple and Google took some offense to this, and both of them quickly delisted Fortnite from their stores.
I mean, they didn't even take offense. That's just in their terms of service. You can't do that.
So actually, this is where this gets really, really weird.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Before you continue, one important detail: this change was not approved by at least Apple. I can't tell you if it was for Google or not, but this change was not approved by Apple. This update was not something.
The interesting thing is the lawsuits that Epic are doing. Actually, that is not relevant. That's the weird thing. So Epic is doing these lawsuits. A lot of people have been throwing around Epic suing them, yada, yada, yada. And I think they haven't read into the details of this because it's a little different than I think a lot of people are imagining. So Epic is not actually seeking any payment. They're not seeking damages or anything similar. They are interested in order for both companies to end their monopolistic practices, which is a lot further reaching. This is where this gets really interesting because the cases here, I think, reading these, Epic probably knew what was going to happen, especially on the Apple Store.
Absolutely.
The Google Store might have hit them out of nowhere with this because they're usually a little bit more lax on this kind of thing. But the Apple Store specifically, Epic seemed prepared, especially considering they just released a trailer for Fortnite that is like riffing on this whole thing.
Yeah,
and that was not
ready, ad campaign ready,
if that
lawsuit ready.
Yeah, if that ad was not ready to go before this happened, then they have some of the most efficient, hardworking marketing people I have ever seen. That is incredible.
And some like great mocap people if they're doing the mocap that quickly.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's wild. So we're gonna go over the Apple case first. So Apple, this is one that is a little easier to understand because there is no other way on Apple devices to get an app aside from the App Store. Even if you're a developer, you have to go through the Apple ecosystem to get your stuff onto your phone to like test it. It's a huge hassle. It's awful. But it's usually not a problem for users because like they open the App Store, they get their app, right? It's not generally a problem for anyone normal. So the issue here is that Epic is claiming that Apple has a monopoly on iOS devices, which should be an open ecosystem because they're performing like personal computers, but are not. There's no other way to get that app there. Whereas the Google case is a little flimsier because Epic can just upload their app to a different place, and then people can still download the app file. So they're not locked out of being on devices that Android devices. Whereas with Apple, they are locked out of being on Apple devices right now. The Apple thing is essentially their payment needs to be processed in the Apple app and not through a separate thing, which I think in most cases is understandable, right? Like Wyatt was saying, it's in the terms of service. It's a thing that generally you have to deal with. Apple takes a 30% cut,
which is a little insane.
It's a lot. And there are arguments here as to that being somewhat industry standard. That isn't necessarily true on stuff like PC, because on PC, so Steam takes a hefty cut. I don't think we actually have the percentages, but it is somewhere in that range. I don't think it's that much. It's somewhere in the like 20 to 30 range, I think.
Yeah, I feel like it's like 20 to 25%. Yeah. Like, isn't Epic Store being like, "Oh, we only take what? How much do they take?"
Epic takes 12, I think.
12 or something.
And then nothing if your game is using Unreal.
And I think it's a similar cut.
They're beating Steam.
Yeah, it's a similar cut for I think like Xbox Live and PlayStation Network as well.
Yeah, but we don't know for certain. And then it gets a little hazier when you're looking at stuff like GOG and Humble Bundle, where payment is like this weird maybe not type thing of you don't always have a way to, you can like change who your pay goes to. So it gets a little weirder on PC and is a lot clearly less monopolistic. And the argument on PC is that these cuts are valid because you can distribute your stuff on something like Itch, which is free, but you then have the issue of your game is in a platform that is very saturated with like weird indie projects. So Steam, you pay Steam, the idea is Steam will help make your game more visible, which is generally true, not always. It depends on the quality of your game and whether or not Steam likes it. Essentially.
Steam has also been in some been under fire in the past for
Steam
allowing
has
everything and
issues,
anything on their
but
platform. But like, that's a conversation again for another time. But
yeah, it's still a platform that you can get your game on Steam under most circumstances. Whether or not it will be more visible now is a lot weirder than in the past. In the past, Steam was harder to get onto, and therefore your stuff was more visible. But now you have the issue of like there's a lot of stuff. Your stuff may not be visible based on whether or not Steam decides to put it on their featured page or something.
yeah. You're also paying into the ecosystem though, because I know a lot of people who are just like, I won't buy games that aren't on
Exactly.
Steam
That's the idea.
Yeah.
But on Apple, that falls apart because there is no other option. There's no other way to distribute. So that's like the Apple case background. Is Apple's trying? Epic is trying to. I don't even know if they're expecting these cases to succeed. That's the big thing. I'm curious to know after the fact, after all this. I hope they say something about this, and whether or not this is something they expect to actually get anything out of these cases of like a change, or just to bring more publicity to it, because it's certainly doing that. Like these cases are now very public because of this.
It's weird because why would a mega corporation like that put so much time and effort into something if they're not getting something out of it?
I mean, Epic is I think they're getting the consumer friendly publicity.
Okay, well, it's
which is what Epic is already doing, right? Like Epic has all these free games. We just talked about 7.5 million people claimed a game in a day on Epic, right? So Epic's store is clearly getting traffic. Whether or not people are spending money is a lot harder to determine because we don't have that data. And like I know, speaking for most of us here, I think most of us haven't bought more than like one or just zero things on the Epic store, right?
I've bought a few things.
So the things I bought
for
Satisfactory
Outer
because Satisfactory was exclusive, and we didn't know if it was coming to Steam. So I bought that like 2 years
Control.
ago. And yeah, I bought Control.
I don't have a problem with the Epic Games Store. I'll buy games like now that it's mostly functional. It's like not annoying to use.
I have a problem. It really comes down to two things. One, I'm still not okay with them poaching games that were promised to go on other platforms. Like, I still think that's a really scummy thing to do. And secondly,
I think a lot of that is on the publishers and the developers too, though, because Epic, they came in and were like, "Yo, we'll give you this fat stack."
And it's starting to bleed into like what we've talked about before. With Bayonetta was a good example of a game that wouldn't have been made without Nintendo. I think now we're hitting this point where Epic is sponsoring a lot of indie developers, where these games may not have realistically come out.
But I'm not talking about those. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about those.
Yeah,
I'm talking about something like Outer Worlds, which was going to come out regardless because Outer Worlds already has a publisher.
And Outer Worlds is
going to
even
come
weird
out.
too because it launched on day one on Game Pass as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I don't know. Those are weird, shady business deals that probably
and
weird and
my
shady.
my second issue with it is the amount of features that it doesn't have, like really basic storefront features that it doesn't have, is frustrating and kind of insulting. And I really hate it too when a lot of people try and defend it by saying, "Oh, well, when Steam came out, it didn't have all the features it has now." And to that, I say Steam.
But Steam was like a new thing, right?
Steam came
nothing.
out when?
There was nothing like
2001?
Steam when it first came out. So it was complete. It was setting up its own roadmap on how to do an online digital storefront. But now that you have this perfect blueprint of how to do a storefront in front of you and even ways to improve it, they instead launch with the absolute bare minimum.
They instead launch without a shopping cart.
Yeah, and I'm not, especially with a company that's as big as this, who has this much money to throw around. I really don't think they should have launched it this bare bones. It's getting better, but it's still very, very bare bones.
Okay, so that's covering a lot of the Epic side of things. We do need to still talk about the Google case. Because the Google case is a bit different. And the big thing is this is brand new. So this happened 2 days ago, essentially 2 to 3 days, depending on where in the world you are. So it's very breaking news, and any legal case will take a long time to resolve. So we may not know the resolution of this for a few months, or even up to like a year, depending on how long it takes for this to actually resolve, or if it just gets dropped, because it could just get dropped. But there's a lot of stuff going on with the Google case that is very interesting, because at first glance, the Google case is probably has less ground to stand on, because on Android ecosystems, you can put your app on different places and have it downloaded, and it's not a monopoly, right? Where it gets confusing is Google has some weird specific things going on about their stuff. So if you want to advertise your app via Google, a Google product like YouTube, you must then sell that app via the Play Store. So there's these little things that Epic is picking out that are like, this is a weird thing, where they're tying in YouTube, which is probably one of the biggest ways to sell a mobile app, is like ads on YouTube, videos on YouTube showcasing it. To sell via the Play Store, you then have to sell via the Play Store. LG was in talks with Epic, and now Epic was trying to get them to get the Epic Store pre-installed as a game store on the OnePlus, and Google blocked that. So there's some weird stuff here with Google essentially doing some things that don't line up with what they say they do. If you try to install, here's another thing. If you try to install via a website, the download will ask you to change your phone settings to essentially a security risk. And those apps also then can't update in the background. So there's like some minor stuff like that. And again, Epic is not seeking any payment for these, which is the big thing that I think a lot of people miss, is that these are not cases of Epic looking for money. There's really no, I think there's very little advantage to Epic doing this, aside from if they do win these cases, they'll be able to get their stuff back on the stores, which will probably help sell.
See, I didn't know about they weren't asking for monetary compensation, because to me it first kind of felt like, oh, why do I care about one multi-billion-dollar company suing another multi-billion-dollar company about all these billions of dollars that I'm never going to see?
And it's interesting as well, the timing of this, because this happened not too long after that giant antitrust hearing that was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
where it was like they had, Apple CEO, they had, was it Apple, Amazon, Facebook, whoever at this big conference, and they were just basically grilling them on how they run their different services and stuff. So the timing of this also, I think, is very interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if Epic was trying to time this around.
And Epic actually does mention the antitrust suite in this.
Exactly. So
they are tying it in with that.
Yeah, it's, and because it's one thing that I've been thinking about a lot, obviously, ever since this first came out, and it's kind of a shame that the company to kind of lead the charge on this is Epic, because
so there's an interesting thing with this that I think a lot of people get, that Epic has this look of being like a big corporation.
Mm-hmm.
At least for developers, a lot of what Epic does is very developer focused and good, in that like they're taking less of a cut if you make the game with their engine. Their engine's free now instead of having to be paid, and the Unreal Engine is a very, very good game development engine. So on the developer end, a lot of stuff is really good. Their consumer facing stuff is less good. But still, like, the free games are going a long way.
They really are, because they bring me to this thing, and I have World War Z was like on a deep cut discount the other day, and I bought that. It was,
and the interesting thing with that, Ben, is if you had gotten the free deals, you would have had World War Z for free. Exactly,
but I didn't. But then they put it on sale for $10, and I'm like, okay, I'll grab World War Z, and now I have World War Z.
I just don't
from the ashes too.
I just don't know if I'm entirely okay with Epic being the company to lead the charge on this. You know what I mean? In charge. Epic, I'm more hesitant about what their real motives are. You know what I mean?
That's true, but at the same time, a smaller company just doesn't have the resources to even think
Exactly.
about it,
So there's a bunch of stuff Epic did with this that makes it a lot harder for Google and Apple to counter, in that they went to a lot of local courts first, and then kept going up the chain essentially. So, and only a company with this amount of money can really do that. This isn't something that a small like indie team could have done if their game had this issue. So Epic is like one of the only companies in a position to be able to do this case the way they have, which I think is like the reality of it. It's maybe not that this is the best company for it, but it's one of the only ones that can. And I would much rather have Epic doing it than no one doing it. It's definitely better than nothing. And I do want to mention something about the antitrust case. So essentially that opened up the Windows PC platform for other developers. That's the one-line description of how that case went. The take that happened there is that Windows PCs are essential enough to daily life in a lot of jobs that they need to be open for competition, which I think a lot of people would agree is true. In Epic's case, they are saying that your smartphones are also in that case of like being essential enough to daily life that they need to allow for competition, which I think a lot of people will agree with.
I mean, now they definitely are. I think, as with so many laws and things, they are constantly playing catch up. Like the legal system is constantly playing catch up with technology. Like the internet, like internet laws are just still so far behind what we do on the internet these days. Like copyright laws are just completely out of whack with YouTube. Like it just so I think it's something that needs to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe this will actually be some kind of a spike to get that way, because I mean obviously, and iPhones and stuff are ridiculously just like all over the place. Everybody has a smartphone these days, so
yeah,
it's definitely a valid point there on Epic's side.
And I mean, even then, the smaller element of this is Epic is just cutting the cost of goods in Fortnite. They're making them blanket less expensive.
Well, I mean, the reason for that was to get people to use the Epic Store instead, because they're literally still making more money by cutting 20%, giving a 20% discount on their own store is cheaper than selling.
Well, so it's not a 20 on Fortnite itself. It's not a 20% discount. They have just permanently dropped prices. It's not being marketed as a sale. They have permanently dropped the price of V-Bucks
on the Epic Store.
No, on for any version of Fortnite that you have.
Oh,
which in Fortnite is already only available on the Epic Store. Like it's always been that way. Even on Android before it was on the Play Store, it was on Epic's website that you could download from there. So that's always been that way. But they have straight up just dropped the price of V-Bucks in Fortnite by 20% across the board.
Oh, like so even in the Apple Store.
Yeah. So long as you are buying, the reason the Apple stores were weird is the Apple Store took so much of a cut that some financial stuff couldn't justify it, essentially. They added the Epic Direct option, which was you could essentially go to a different place and then pay Epic directly, and they would fund your account. And again, the weird thing with this is Epic is cross-platform.
Yeah.
So you could just go on your PC, and even if you play on mobile, buy V-Bucks there and get the discount. So they're not particularly limiting you with this. I think it's just some weird store stuff as to why they couldn't do that directly on the stores.
Yeah. I don't know.
So yeah, it's super hard to really know what's going on the back end of this.
I despise Apple. But I agree with Wyatt though. There's definitely some kind of there's some consternation.
Yeah.
That's
a good word for it.
Because it is hard to believe that a huge mega corporation like Epic Games would be truly this giving to the community, And
it's a shame that a company that has so much. Yeah, it's a shame that a company that's this powerful, that has the ability to do something good like this. It's a shame that we live in a world where we just don't trust them.
Yeah, we
because we've
have
been
to be
duped.
distrusting because otherwise they have the chance to take advantage
Yeah.
of us.
And we've been
Yeah.
duped so many times that we're now just convinced that,
Yeah.
like, at the end of the day, they don't have our best interest in mind. Time and time again, we've been convinced of that.
I
And
mean,
now it
it's
seems
not
like
even
it
the
seems like now
majority.
when someone is trying to do something that's good, we're all super hesitant about it. And I'm not saying they are. And I'm not saying that they aren't. It's just it's hard to
Yeah.
really get behind them.
Well, I mean, it's not even like that's not even like a question anymore. Like nobody debates whether or not Walmart has your best interest in mind. They don't.
Yeah, people have
Nobody thinks
accepted that they
EA
don't.
Nobody thinks EA is trying to be customer friendly. They're just doing that because they know having the customers mostly on their good side gives them more money. Like it's all about money for these people.
Yeah.
Or not even for the people, but for the corporation.
And it is kind of sad that we as people have to look that way at consumer friendly moves and be like, this is most likely just a marketing push.
Yeah.
There's always got to be an ulterior motive to something. And
There's a catch.
yeah, there's a catch. And sometimes that catch is fine. Like if a company's doing a consumer friendly thing that also gets them some publicity, I don't think that's a problem.
Well, no, it's not, because it's like, you win-win.
Yeah.
The customer gets some things and then the company gets actually probably some deserved attention because they're doing something good for the customers. But this is just, it seems too shady. It's like, what they put so much work into this,
That's the other thing I wanted to say too, is that this is all so like perfectly timed and planned. It's just it's suspicious because it's just
it's impressive.
It's impressive,
but it was like, oh, so now Epic's kind of upset, so they just did this little thing to like maybe try and get one passed on Apple, and they got caught. So now they're like, oh, okay, a week later they come up with this lawsuit and this ad, and then like it's just all happens so fast, and it's
a bit too meticulously planned and created.
And
it's
time and money
suspicious.
Into it. They put time and money into it, and companies don't put time and money into things unless they're expecting more money back. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's about as much as we can really say about this at the current point in time. Because again, we don't know if Epic's got other motives in this. We don't know what the result of this will be. It's something we're gonna have to wait to see. It's really hard to tell
because lawsuits take forever.
Yeah. Okay. So that's most of our news. There's some other minor stuff, like Fall Guys has a roadmap now. We got some stuff about War of Mine. This War of Mine is joining some Poland schools reading list. So video games are now being used in Poland as educational tools, which is cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, but a lot of small stuff like that. Oh, we did have one other small thing that we didn't really talk about. I think Ubisoft continued to clean house and has fired another person in their long list. We might have mentioned Tommy Francois last time, but he's gone now. I think we did. But yeah, he's gone now. There's been more happening.
There was one thing that I heard and read about or something, like then there was a company, I don't remember which big gaming company it was, but they denied a raise for their execs.
That was we were going to talk about that. It's EA. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
EA so this isn't just they denied it. This is EA's like board voted to not give that payout, that compensation package. Which is hopefully a good sign that EA might be actively getting a little bit better. Baby
when
steps.
The board is like, yo, what are you doing with this money? Why is Bobby Kotick making $1 billion?
They would need to get rid of a lot of higher ups for any major change to happen. I think.
But it's good to see that at least the investors are like, wait a second, our money's not being used in a good way.
Finally.
Yeah.
It's like I will give credit where credit's due for that. I don't think that really that credit is due to EA. It's due for the investors and the people who made the decision.
100% to the investors, but
took them a while to get there, but they got there.
Well, I mean, I'm sure the investors were seeing like record numbers, and they were like, what's a couple extra million to spend whatever I don't even know what anybody's name is anymore, but like, what's a couple extra million if they're bringing in an extra billion this quarter?
Yeah. And smaller news, Kena Bridge of Spirits is actually launching on PS4 before PS5. So anyone that remembers Kena from the Sony showcase, we will have that in our hands soon-ish.
I'm probably going to wait for the PS5.
It will have a free upgrade to the PS5 version.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So, yeah, that's a cool thing for anyone who's interested in that game. I know a lot of us absolutely
Yes.
are.
I'm very excited.
So yeah, that's our gaming news for the week. Now we have a few announcements about the show. So, not to scare anyone, this will be the final episode of Double N Radio Weekly. But
no.
the show will go on, and in reality, it's not the final episode because we're not like changing the numbers or anything. It's just going to
rebranding.
continue as it's not even a rebrand because the logo and everything's the same. We're just, for the purposes of stuff like SEO and analytics, in order to get found on searches, you generally need to have the topic of your video and your title. And right now our podcast is called Double N Radio Weekly. That's a holdover from when it was mostly a talk show that we just kind of hung out and talked. Now we were all pretty decided that it's about video games, so we're going to call it the Double N Radio Gamescast.
It
Or
is no
something
longer
similar to that.
It is no longer exclusively about Star Wars, unfortunately.
And
Now exclusively about Halo.
Yep.
now, if you want that juicy, useless garbage talking, you can come to my stream instead.
You can, yep. Actually, if you go to the YouTube channel that's linked on the screen,
I actually
you can find links to most of our stuff. Anyone here who's
I-
actively doing stuff will be added there if they haven't been already.
play video games there too, so I lied.
Yeah.
But
So you can do that.
Wait. Wait, am I on here?
Yeah, you will be if you give me your links. Well, I think I have your links actually. You don't need to give me anything.
You
But there's
will
more
be.
stuff. There's more announcements to talk about. And by more, I mean there's like one other thing. So we're also going to be, the podcast will be coming out on Tuesday mornings after this week, just because that gives us an extra lead day. So instead of having to record this, we record on Sundays, immediately having to upload and get it ready for 7 a.m. the next morning. In case something happens, we now have one lead day to be like, oh no, something went wrong, we can fix it.
or like since it's like literally 10 p.m., we can go to bed.
Yeah, we can go to bed after
and then
recording
wake
and not
up
worry
and do
about
it the next day.
Yeah, especially because like I use a laptop. I have to have my laptop open if I'm uploading it,
Right.
which is a large bright light. So we're doing that. It'll be on Tuesdays, and Tuesdays also tends to be the biggest viewership day or listenership for podcasts. So it also works better in podcast analytics land.
See,
Yeah.
just like we were talking about corporations, we actually don't care about you guys. It's all about the
No, okay, so you just said the opposite of
All
what
about
we're implying.
the
We care a
5%
lot, and that we want to make it best for the people listening to listen with their normal routines.
That was a bit. That was a goof.
Yeah, it was a bit, but I can't allow you to continue that bit when we're doing our branded segment of hello.
Oh.
We're doing this thing. All right, and yeah, that's our announcements. Heads up, we may start putting some sponsorship segments in the center of the podcast. That might be happening.
Really? This is
Just for the sake of making us seem a little bit more serious than we are.
we will be sponsoring ourselves.
We will be sponsored by
what I'm
Raid
gonna
Shadow
do-
Legends,
yeah.
the
Nope.
Raycon E25s.
Yep,
No.
100%.
Play.
No.
Yeah, that I wouldn't expect that anytime very soon, but in the next like month or two, that'll probably happen. Just to test out the waters and see how it works.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. Okay, so that is pretty much the show. We need to do our shout-outs, then we'll play the outro, then we're out of here.
It
We hope
has
you guys
been
have had a fun time.
considerably over time today, but
Actually,
had a
no,
good
we're
time.
not overtime at all.
Oh.
We just started late because we had to have conversations about like
what time did we
renaming
start?
the show. We started at like 8:15. So we're actually hour and a half is about where we're aiming for generally. So
Okay.
we're right on time. But yeah, we got shout outs. So I guess I'll start. Shout out to websites like GameIndustry.biz that keep all these things organized for me so I don't have to do a lot of work.
Nice.
So I can just look at the weekly roundups and be like, here's what we need to talk about, and then go back and see if there's anything we missed. Like the EA thing. It's fun.
I'll go next. I'd like to shout out the Play Watch Listen podcast with Alana Pierce, Troy Baker. Y'all know Troy Baker, but it also
I know Troy.
it also has Mike Bithell, who worked on games like Thomas Was Alone and Volume, and it also has Austin Wintroy, who worked on the Banner Saga soundtrack and the Journey soundtrack. And that's a great podcast with a lot of like insight in the actual games industry and stuff like that. So if you like this stuff, you should go check them out because they're cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. All right.
I want to go last.
Okay.
I have a goof, so I'm just gonna. I feel like we should end with a goof.
All right. We'll end with a goof.
We'll end with the goof for now. I'm already talking, so the stage is mine. I'm going to give a shout out to my other friend Ryan. Sorry, currently present Ryan.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is other friend's Ryan
Yeah.
birthday today, and he's been my my living, breathing kind of walkthrough for Final Fantasy 3 and also Metal Gear Solid. So shout out to him for making me not want to die during the parts of those games that are.
Thank you, other Ryan, for knowing how to play.
Oh, you should have told me I could do the same thing. Actually, I can't. I have not played Final Fantasy 3.
You have so many
Played
Ryans
Metal
at your
Gear.
disposal, Brett. You have so many Ryans.
So many Ryans. Can
Look,
we be
we're all the
thankful
same.
for all the Ryans? Look, Thanksgiving is right around the corner.
No, Ben, this isn't your turn. It's Tessa's turn.
Ryan's giving this year.
Yes.
So it's my turn.
Yeah. Shout out.
Shout out to my temporary roommate John for
we
getting
love
me
that.
getting this Reese's out of the vending machine for me during this podcast and being really quiet about it.
Whoa.
We didn't hear it. We did not hear a
Hell
noise.
yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, he walked right up to me. He gave it to me. He did like a little heart with his hands and went back into his room.
Are we sure he's not Splinter Cell?
That's where Sam Fisher went.
Yeah. Sam Fisher's been actually here the whole time. We never knew.
Whoa. All right, Ben, it's your goof. You can goof.
Shout
me.
out. Shout out to my own dumb ass for forgetting the base to my microphone because now it's just sitting on my desk. And apologies for any.
Yeah, you also might be
Audio
hearing it. It's a
issues?
little lower than normal, even though I have been
Yeah.
maxed out. On
It's a bit lower than normal,
speakers.
and also I have absolutely nothing up on the walls in my room, so the echo is quite offensive.
The echo's actually not that bad. You've been mostly fine.
It is for me, maybe not so much for you guys, but
Yeah, I
I'm
think
literally
Discord's
hearing
got some like
myself.
noise compression
Yeah.
that gets
Discord
rid of
does
most
all
of
right.
it.
I'm afraid of how it's going to be on stream, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
So yeah, it's been a great podcast, guys. We're gonna play the outro and get out of here. We hope you have a good night, good
Yeah.
morning,
Or whatever.
yeah, good day wherever you are.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. This
Good
has
tea
been
time.
the 001 Radio. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I hope the weather's good.
Who said you could do the outro?
Now, there is no-
And the outro's playing right now. It's music.
Oh, alright. I was gonna say.
Nobody heard that.
Okay.
It was drowned out by the music.
I think at some point we should all be able to hear the music